Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
So just read a little bit from the last few pages of this chapter, entitled In Every Town and Village. As I say, it kind of summarizes the activities of Srila Prabhupada, the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and why he had established this Krishna consciousness movement and leaving the legacy for us as disciples and grand disciples, so that we can actually continue pushing forward the Krishna consciousness movement, because it is the prime necessity for society, and it is the only panacea for all the troubles that people are experiencing in this world. So this is at the end. Srila Prabhupada is leaving Nairobi, and so this Satsarup Maharaj is now writing. He was executing his mission at an advanced age, and Lord Krishna was rewarding his attempts. Prabhupada, therefore, in a mood of reciprocating with Krishna, kept working to expand the Krishna consciousness movement. Knowing that Lord Krishna wanted the whole world flooded with love of God, Srila Prabhupada had earnestly tried to do it, beginning in a storefront in New York City. And Krishna had responded, sending him a few men and enough money to pay the rent. Then Srila Prabhupada had attempted to do more, and again Krishna had responded. Thus a second ISKCON center, and a third and a fourth, and more had sprung up, and book printing had begun. Srila Prabhupada, in his mood of loving reciprocation with Krishna, just kept attempting more and more. Now it was no longer one person's work. Srila Prabhupada was entrusting the work to his disciples, and those disciples, if they were actually to help, would have to adopt Prabhupada's selfless dedication. As they tried to follow him in his expansive plans, however, their minds faltered. For a handful of devotees to maintain even one temple in one city was a big job. Yet Prabhupada was doing this 100 times over. He wanted the movement he had started to continue for thousands of years, and he was confident that as long as his followers remained pure, working within the guidelines he had given, they would be successful. Although the present age of Kali was the worst of all ages, in which people had little or no interest in spiritual life, Prabhupada had faith in the past Acharya's predictions that Krishna consciousness was destined to enter a golden age of worldwide influence. True, it was the worst of times, yet by the influence of the holy name of Krishna, it would become the best of times. The chanting of the holy name was the religion of the age, and people of Kali Yuga could find deliverance simply in chanting Hare Krishna. So in this way, it goes on to explain Srila Prabhupada's activities, and we cover some of it at the end. So at this point, Srila Prabhupada is in Indore, in Madhya Pradesh in India, and he's invited by the organizers of the Gita Jayanti Mahotsava, where they invite different spiritual personalities to come and present talks on the Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada, along with some of his devotees, about 10 devotees, they went to Indore, and they were nicely accommodated. And as the program began, it's described that Srila Prabhupada, he was the last speaker. And all the persons before him, they were all Mayavadis, and presenting Mayavadi philosophy, that Krishna is just an ordinary person, Krishna is impersonal, that Krishna, the person is different from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this way, presenting so many bogus ideas as to the nature and as to the personality of Krishna. And Prabhupada, along with his disciples, had to tolerate all of this. And also, all the speakers spoke in Hindi. So in one sense, it was good. No one, the Prabhupada's disciples did not understand what they were saying. But still, Prabhupada was very, very upset that you're organizing a Bhagavad Gita Jayanti when Bhagavad Gita was first spoken, but all the speakers, they do not know who Krishna is. They do not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this way, Prabhupada was very, very upset. So on the first night, being the last speaker, he spoke for a few minutes, and then he had the devotees do kirtan. And then the crowd went wild, because they were seeing for the first time Vaishnavas from the West. That they had come and they fully immersed themselves in the process of Vaishnava culture and complete dedication and selfless dedication to the service of Krishna. So in this way the devotees did kirtan, and they won over the hearts of the people. So and also it was very, very spontaneous, it wasn't planned. As Prabhupada spoke, and you could see that the audience was becoming restless like that. So he told the devotees, just chant. So it was something very, very spontaneous. So seeing how the people had responded, the organizers were very, very happy that Prabhupada's devotees, they engaged in such wonderful kirtan. So again, Prabhupada requested them that I do not want to be the last speaker. And so the organizer said, okay, we'll slot you in the beginning. But then again, Prabhupada was again the last speaker. So again, at the end, the devotees did kirtan, and again the crowd went wild, appreciating the chanting of the holy names. And on the third, and also it's described that on the second night, the organizers, because Prabhupada was actually, the devotees were chanting on stage. The first night the devotees actually jumped off the stage and mingled with the crowd, and this way the crowd was really kind of absorbed and really got into it. But the second night the devotees were standing on stage, and people began to pull the devotees, come down like that. And one man, he began pulling at a devotee, lady devotee sari. And Prabhupada, he took his cudgels and he swung it at the man. So in this way, he showed that even though he is such a saintly person, but he was actually protecting his devotees. That they could not be exploited, they shouldn't be abused in any way. So like that, Prabhupada, and then the third night, the same thing happened. And then Prabhupada walked off the stage, and he told the devotees that you do kirtan. So Prabhupada began to speak with these people, saying that you're presenting Gita Jayanti, but you don't know who Krishna is. And all the people you're bringing, they have no idea who Krishna is. So therefore it is a disservice to Krishna, it is a disservice to Bhagavad Gita. And what's the point of having these programs if no one benefits from them? But you're simply preaching an impersonal philosophy. And as Prabhupada describes in Bhagavad Gita, even great politicians, like even Dr. Radhakrishnan, he presented Bhagavad Gita and he was saying that Krishna's body and Krishna's soul is different. Just as we have this body and we are spirit soul. So in the same way he's saying Krishna is the same. So making no distinction between Krishna and the living entity. So what is the value of Bhagavad Gita if Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead? If Krishna is just an ordinary person like you and I, then what value does Bhagavad Gita have? So in this way Prabhupada began to chastise them and make them present, encourage them to really present Bhagavad Gita as it is. So from Indore, Prabhupada and his devotees, they went to Surat. And in Surat, the reception was completely, it was like very, very wonderful and very festive. The people of Surat, of Gujarat, they actually opened the whole city to them. They opened their hearts to the devotees. The whole city was decorated with festoons and banana leaves and mango leaves and water pots and like that. It was a big festival. And when the devotees chanted through the streets, the people thronged the city streets. And they put garlands on the devotees. It's described that there were so many garlands you couldn't even see the devotees' faces. And like in the early Back to Godhead magazines, there's some nice pictures there. Devotees parading or chanting through the streets of Surat. And the devotees, they had an inkling, they had a realization what it means to have, or for the whole world to become Krishna conscious. That the people were completely absorbed in the kirtan, they were completely receptive to the devotees, and they treated the devotees in a very, very wonderful way. And it's described that the area that was chosen was completely packed. And every night, thousands and thousands of people would attend. And even the mayor, he declared it a public holiday. So the next day all the schools, the banks, the shops, everything was closed. And everybody came to the festival of the Holy Name. So like that we see how Prabhupada was encouraging the devotees. And it's described as Prabhupada, he would come onto the balcony and then he would lead the devotees. That you please go out and chant the holy names, like a general marshalling his troops. So in this way, thousands of people benefited by hearing the holy names. And then also whilst in Surat, from there they went to Allahabad on the occasion of wasn't Kumbh Mela but Magh Mela. Not even Magh Mela, because Kumbh Mela is held every 12 years. So that at that time the constellation, where the different planets or the stars, they combine and they form a jug in space, in the sky. And then from this jug the nectar falls down onto. So that's why people go to Kumbh Mela, to the confluence of the Ganges, the Saraswati and the Jamuna, so the Triveni. So like that the devotees, so the people, millions of people come. So this year wasn't the Kumbh Mela, but it is Magh Mela. So Magh Mela is held in January of every year. But still people come because they know that by coming they can get liberation. And as I say, like Kumbh Mela is held every 12 years. So this year was, or 1971, was the Artha Kumbh Mela. So it was 6 years. 6 years into the 12 years. So it was like half the time had passed by. So still it was completely packed, millions and millions of people. And for the devotees it was very, very austere. Because it was just open land. And they were confronted, or they saw a city of tents. And like different, thousands and thousands of different sadhus. The Naga Babas, some of them riding on elephants, some carrying tridents, some, all sorts of people. And so they were completely bewildered, seeing so many types of sadhus, and then seeing so many people. And also there was no like proper facilities. It was very, very makeshift. And like the toilets, the bathing facilities, etc. And even the cooking facilities. So it was very, very basic. And the devotees, and also it is very, very cold. The whole thing is very foggy. There's no real sunshine like that. So everything's very, and then thousands of fires are lit and the whole area is completely smoked. So it's like a very, in one sense, it's really like a very depressing sight. No sunshine, there's millions and millions of people, fire everywhere, and like that. And then all kinds of sounds from all types of different sadhus like that. Actually, in one, I think it's the same Kumbh Mela, but in one Kumbh Mela, Rajram Prabhu, who was the architect at our temple in at Radhanath, he was saying that he was there at one Kumbh Mela, and then because everybody's got like microphones and speakers outside the tents, and because all the different groups are there, and they're all like blasting their music, they're all blasting, chanting mantras, they're all doing different things like that. So it's like a cacophony of sounds, different sounds like that. So Prabhupada, he was trying to lecture, and then the sound was there, so then Prabhupada just like leant into the microphone. Na 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 na. So in this way he imitated the different like speakers like that, that actually the actual message or the actual benefit is chanting of the holy names. So like that, the devotees, they underwent this severe austerity for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. It's described that the ISKCON 10th ISKCON Pandal was the best, because they had Radha Krishna deities there. There was the only deities on the Radha Krishna deities in the whole Kumbh Mela. And Prabhupada would have kirtan, Prabhupada would lecture in the morning, and people would come and listen like that. And also sometimes the devotees, actually Prabhupada made a very, very important point. Also Prabhupada was also sick at the time. But because of the, I guess the situation being so cold, etc., many devotees would actually sleep through the morning program. No one would get up for Mangalati. No one would take bath, like that. So, no, Prabhupada was very, very disturbed with the devotees. Even though he was sick, then one morning he got up, and 3 o'clock in the morning he went outside to the water pump, and then he took bath in the Gamsha. So it's described that only 2 devotees would get up in the morning program, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Hamsadutta. They would go down to the banks of the Ganges and they would bathe there. But the others, they would simply stay in the tents, in the sleeping bags. So when Prabhupada did that and the devotees heard that Prabhupada took bath early in the morning and he was there, they felt very, very bad. And then Prabhupada made a very, very important statement. He said, if you want to actually progress in spiritual life, there's no question of not attending the morning program. He said, you have to rise before the Brahma Muhurta hour. He said, if you're a serious practitioner of spiritual life, then you have to rise before the Brahma Muhurta. Otherwise, it is very, very difficult to progress in Krishna consciousness. So the devotees, from that time onwards, they put aside their own comforts and whatever, and they simply attended the morning program, and they completely immersed themselves in service. And in this way, they would go through, meander through the crowds, they would chant the holy names, and people, they would offer obeisances, they would offer some money, they would show respects to the devotees like that. So it was a very, very wonderful time for the devotees, although austere, but still, because it was on behalf of Prabhupada, they took great delight in that. And then from the Kumbh Mela, they went to Gorakhpur. From Allahabad, they went to Gorakhpur. And Prabhupada had a disciple there, Ramananda. So Ramananda was Indian born, and he joined the temple, he was initiated in 1967 in San Francisco. And he was a professor, he was a researcher in science, he was like a scientist. So when Prabhupada went to Gorakhpur, then Prabhupada stayed at his house. And when Prabhupada went there, the first thing he said is that we have to preach to the students. And in this way he said, you have to introduce Krishna consciousness to the colleges. And encourage them. It's described that Prabhupada, that many people would come for Prabhupada's lectures. And the tradition was, or the custom that, like Prabhupada, he would give initiation. So one had to practice for 6 months. He had to come every day, or he had to chant 16 rounds, he had to follow the principles like that. But on that occasion, Prabhupada just initiated all those people of him. He didn't consider whether you've been chanting for 6 months, or you've been coming, or like, because all of them were like vegetarian, they were following the principles. So Prabhupada initiated them. And so this shows actually in one of the purports like that, it's described, Lord Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that a sannyasi doesn't initiate disciples for the sake of acquiring wealth. But without disciples, one cannot push on the Krishna consciousness movement. So therefore Prabhupada was initiating so many disciples. Some were qualified, some were unqualified. When one says all of us were unqualified. But some, like when Prabhupada went to Australia, he gave initiation. One boy was only there, like he just came into the temple 1 week, and Prabhupada initiated him. So so in that purport in Australia, Prabhupada is reciting from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that, so to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, sometimes the spiritual master takes risks. Not because he wants to increase his name and fame, but simply to push on the Krishna consciousness movement. So sometimes Prabhupada would do things that were completely unorthodox. And therefore it's described that the spiritual master or the pure devotee, or the acharya, he's not stereotyped. He's not stereotyped. Because according to time, place and circumstance, he's able to adjust or make that adjustment so as to spread Lord Chaitanya's mission. And that is the only business of the pure devotee, to spread Krishna consciousness. So in Gorakhpur, Prabhupada initiated so many devotees like that. And he encouraged them. And then from there, he was invited to go to Benares. On the occasion of the anniversary of Lord Chaitanya visiting Benares. We know that when Lord Chaitanya went to Benares, he met with Prakashananda Saraswati, who was the leader of the Mayavadi devotees, of the Mayavadis in Benares. And so Prabhupada, he went there, and on the most important day, on the actual anniversary day, then they had a big procession, a big deity of Lord Chaitanya, Nimwood deity, and many floats, and then the devotees were leading kirtan like that. It's described that over 300,000 people attended. So, and the devotees were chanting and dancing like that. And again, like the devotees were like a complete hit in India. Because for the first time they're seeing Vaishnavas come, or Western Vaishnavas coming. And as Prabhupada describes in Nectar of Devotion, that when one sees the devotees with nice clean dhoti and kurta, with nice tilak and shaven head, then one thinks, oh, these men are from Vaikuntha. So like that, the Indian people could appreciate, oh, these are Vaikuntha men. Just see how dedicated and sincere they are in the service of Lord Chaitanya, in the service of Lord Krishna. So therefore, they made a very, very big impression on the Indian psyche, on the Indian people, because of their selfless devotion to Srila Prabhupada and to Lord Chaitanya. So it's described that for a while there was one man, he was a photographer. He was kind of following the devotees, John Grisha. And so when Prabhupada saw him in Benares, so Prabhupada said, actually Krishna has captured you. So the man, he was on a photographic assignment for what's this, Geographic something? National Geographic. So he was on a photographic assignment for that. But seeing the devotees and following the devotees around from city to city, he was becoming more and more interested in Krishna consciousness. And later on, this devotee, he became Yadu Bharata, who now does all the ISKCON films and videos and like that. So Prabhupada met with him and said, yeah, Krishna has captured you. So, so that was like one of the important things in Benares. And then from there, Prabhupada, he went back to Gorakhpur. And in Gorakhpur, he met with Hanuman Prasad Pada. So he is the founder of the Gita Press. Like in India, I think every house has a book from Gita Press, be it a comic or be it a Bhagavad Gita, whatever it is. But they were like, I guess in India, they're like the largest publishers of Indian spiritual literature. So he offered Prabhupada, he said, you can open a center in Gorakhpur. So they gave Prabhupada a double-story house. And the deities that they had in Allahabad, so Prabhupada installed the deities there. And then but also it was like, it happened like all of a sudden. So Prabhupada got the devotees, okay, Maharaj, you take off your sari, hang it in the back as the backdrop. Maharaj, you do this, this devotee, you do this. Like, so in the end, they kind of made the temple room. And then Prabhupada said it was very, very nice. And then Prabhupada met with Hanuman Prasad, Hadar himself. And he was very, very old, and also he was very, very sick. And he lived in a separate house. So Prabhupada met with him, and he's described that they didn't speak much, but from the language of their eyes, they were actually communicating. Because the devotees were there, and also Mr. Pada's nephew was there. And he was saying that simply by looking at each other, they were actually communicating. Because both of them, and he was appreciating Srila Prabhupada's work, that for the first time, what Vivekananda, what others could not do, you are doing. And he was very much appreciative of Srila Prabhupada, like that. So in this way, he appreciated Prabhupada, he appreciated the work that Prabhupada was doing, he appreciated ISKCON. So from there, actually in Gorakhpur, Prabhupada, so for the first time, I introduced the chanting of Jai Radha Madhava, just like we're chanting Jai Radha Madhava. So Prabhupada, he introduced the chanting of this song. And then, because it was a new song, so then like he taught the devotees one line at a time like that. So the next day when he chanted Jai Radha Madhava, then he began to explain the meaning of the song. And as he explained the meaning of the song, it's described that his body began to tremble and water began to shoot from Prabhupada's eyes. So this is one of the symptoms of ecstasy. You read Nectar of Devotion, that water comes out from the eyes. Not like tears, but like big, like listen, if you open a tap and water comes out like that. So Prabhupada, he exhibited these symptoms of ecstasy like that. And the devotees, they were completely completely shocked, completely transfixed, they didn't know what to do. But they could appreciate that Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee of Krishna. That Prabhupada is not an ordinary person like that. So, from Gorakhpur, then some devotees stayed on, and then Prabhupada, Prabhupada came to Bombay. So in Bombay, there was a lot of suspicion, around the devotees, because when the devotees first went to India, they were considered CIA agents. They were considered all kinds of things. And also at the same time, I guess some of the older devotees, older persons might know that they made that movie Dam Mere Dam. So it was about like the hippies and the Hare Krishna movement like that. So wherever the devotees would go, Giriraj Maharaj explains that wherever the devotees would go, and the children, they would see them and they would tease them. Dam Mere Dam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, like that. And they would kind of pick on the devotees. And then they would come and complain to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, now they're saying Dam Mere Dam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, but in a few years it'll only be Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. And we see how that came to pass. And so Prabhupada organized a very, very big Pandal program. So every night 20,000 people would come. And it was in Cross Maidan. And so like 20,000 people would come, and the devotees, they would chant and dance like that. And the crowd, again, they loved this. And Shamsundar Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. Prasadam has to be cooked and distributed. There must be handbills distributed, there must be billboards everywhere, there must be... And the devotees saying, Prabhupada, we have no money, we have no little time, how will we be able to do it? Then Prabhupada said, what's the point of you being Americans? American means you can do something wonderful in a very, very short period of time. You can do something wonderful. So, Prabhupada kind of challenged them in this way, what's the point of you being Americans? So they the whole city was splashed with Hare Krishna banners and billboards and posters and like that. And Shamsundar, he got like a big air balloon floating over the, like Victoria, what's the main station? Victoria Station in Bombay. So they put a big balloon over the station. So people from miles around, they could see the Hare Krishna mantra, they could see the advertisement for the Hare Krishna festival. And people came in the thousands, and say like 10,000 the first night, and 20,000 like that. And it was, also, I think that's where Radhanath Maharaj met Prabhupada, at that Pandal program. So like that. So many people came and they could appreciate the devotees again. So that was a complete success. And again, like Giriraj Maharaj, he explains how he was like one of the main fundraisers. And they produced a brochure, and they would go to the life members, and they would make life members and ask them to contribute to the festival like that. So they had, and also Maharaj explained that one time he came to Prabhupada because it was like so demanding. It was like from morning till night. So he said, Prabhupada, we have no time to read, we have no time to chant, we have no time to do anything. And then Prabhupada said, why are you working like an ass? He said to him, it's better to employ 10 asses than to work like an ass yourself. So then they got people to do everything, because now the devotees are doing everything. So Prabhupada said, better to employ people and let them do everything, pack the chairs. Because they would kind of set up the book table, when the program was over, pack all the chairs, clean up and everything like that. So Prabhupada said, better to employ people and let them do that. What's the point of you working like that? And then you'll just simply get like burnt out, you'll be no time for reading, no time for chanting. And then the consciousness can become spoiled, and you think, well, it can become very, very mundane. So Prabhupada encouraged them that better than to work hard like an ass yourself, better to employ 10 asses. So from Bombay, Prabhupada went to Malaysia, and then in Kuala Lumpur they organized some programs, and like that. So also at the last day of the Panda program in Bombay, Prabhupada, he had one couple get married. So the boy was from Sweden, Begavan Prabhu, and then the girl was from Australia. So Prabhupada married them on stage, and the Indian people loved it, because fully decked out like a bride and everything like that. And then also Prabhupada gave held initiation on stage like that. So people, they were completely, because also Prabhupada was showing them this is the full Indian culture. We're not kind of taking some things and leaving out something. It is a whole lifestyle. Krishna consciousness is a lifestyle. It's not just like, in one sense it's a religious movement, but actually it's a cultural movement. It is a movement meant to actually change the world, to revolutionize the consciousness of the world. And therefore it is a culture of the spiritual world. So therefore Prabhupada is introducing all these things to show how Krishna consciousness is complete in itself. That everything is there. So like that, people who kind of looking from the outside, looking in, they could appreciate, yes, Krishna consciousness is full. It is complete like that. So from Malaysia, Prabhupada went to Australia, he went to Sydney. So when Prabhupada went to Sydney, actually described there was a lot of confusion, because they had heard that Prabhupada was coming, and then they received another message that Prabhupada wasn't coming. And then they received a message that Bali Madan was coming. So the devotees were waiting for Bali. Bali Madan was also the GBC for Australia. So they were expecting him to come. So they got a message that he's coming. So they're expecting that Bali Madan is coming. This Bali Madan, this thing is nice. Anyway, there's a nice, it's a nice story, but there's a story that, like, he met one girl in Tokyo, in this thing, and she claimed to be the daughter of Toyota, of the owner of Toyota. And so the devotees are thinking, oh, now just see, the owner of Toyota's daughter is part of Hare Krishna movement and we're going to make so much money, we can do this, we can do that. But it turned out to be a hoax. She wasn't the daughter of Toyota. So in Bali Madam, so the devotees, they were expecting Bali Madam to come. So they went to the airport, and when the gates opened, or when the door opened, they saw Prabhupada coming out. And then they were completely shocked, because they weren't expecting Prabhupada to come. And then they sent the message back to the temple that Prabhupada is coming. So when Prabhupada went, these were like all new devotees, and they never met Srila Prabhupada before, they never saw Prabhupada before. And they had like a room, just like a one room, like temple room. And they didn't know how to cook, they didn't know how to clean, they didn't know anything. And then Prabhupada kind of comes into the situation. And then, so Prabhupada opened the one door, he looked outside, and like all the garbage was stacked there. He said, no, what's this? And they said, this is totally unacceptable. And then he asked, okay, I'll take something to eat. And then the devotee who was cooking downstairs, he came, and then the food was, the chapati was half cooked, half raw, half cooked. And the vegetables were burnt and like that. So the Prabhupada said, no, I can't eat this. And then Prabhupada, he said, if you don't know how, then just ask me and I'll show you. So Prabhupada went down. And they told Prabhupada, we don't have a gas stove where we can make the chapatis. Because to make chapatis for puffing up, you need like a gas flame. And then Prabhupada said, no, I can do it on the electric stove also. So Prabhupada, he rolled the same dough that they were making, he rolled the chapatis and put it on the electric stove and it puffed up. And Prabhupada made chapatis for all of them like that. And when Prabhupada went upstairs, the devotee tried to make the chapatis puff up on the electric stove, but he couldn't. So, yeah, so this is the magic of Prabhupada, that only he can do things like that. So, and also Prabhupada had brought the deities from the Bombay, because there were two sets of deities that Prabhupada had ordered whilst in Bombay. So one set of deities Prabhupada brought to Australia, Radha Gopinath. And then seeing the devotees were untrained like that, but still he wanted to establish Krishna consciousness in Australia. So he got the devotees to kind of decorate the temple room. And then so Prabhupada was going to install the deities, but then there was no garlands for the deities. So the devotees ran outside into different people's gardens, trying to find flowers, and then they trying to string garlands. And then Prabhupada was going to give them, some of them, a second initiation, because he brought the deities to install, so he needed Brahmins. So some got first and second on the same day, some got second, some got first. And then Prabhupada said, where's the Brahmin threads? So there was no Brahmin threads. So they had to go and buy string from somewhere, and then one devotee was making the Brahmin threads like that. And then Prabhupada initiated 5 devotees on that day. So I was saying the same, one boy was just there for 1 week, and Prabhupada initiated him. So, yeah, so then Prabhupada initiated them, and as he was leaving, Prabhupada said, he was speaking to Krishna, he's saying that, I've installed you now, but I'm not taking responsibility for you. You please give them the intelligence so that they can serve you nicely. And we see how the devotees, by their devotion, and Prabhupada makes, Maharaj makes the point, although the devotees, they were very, very sincere, very, very dedicated, although the only thing was that they were untrained. So with a little bit of training, then the devotion becomes mature, so to speak. So we see how, like that, if we, the sincerity is there, the determination is there, the enthusiasm is there, the confidence is there, the patience is there, we can actually grow in Krishna consciousness. We may be untrained, we may be untrained, but if we have this determination, then Krishna consciousness can actually grow in the heart. And this we see in Australia, how Prabhupada is praying to Radha Gopinath that you please give them intelligence so that they can do everything very, very nicely. And then from Australia, then Prabhupada Also, whilst in Australia, Prabhupada did 2 programs. One was at a boys' grammar school, and there was all children there. So then Prabhupada, he asked them, who is God? And then initially Prabhupada was getting them to chant Hare Krishna, but they were like very, very quiet and they listened. So Prabhupada was kind of saying, there's only 3 words. Say Hare, and then say Krishna, and say Rama. And the boys were keeping quiet like that. And Prabhupada says, there's only 3 words. No, you are intelligent boys, you can't even remember 3 words. So in this way they began to chant, and eventually some of them began to chant with Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said, do you know who is God? Or what is God realization? And then one of the boys, he eventually said, God is self-realization. So Prabhupada asked, what do you mean by self-realization? Then the boy says, self-realization means being conscious of the unconscious. So Prabhupada said, but first you have to be conscious to be unconscious. You have to be conscious. You can't be unconscious. If you're unconscious, how will you understand the conscious? You have to be conscious. So like that, Prabhupada began to sing, and then he asked, has anybody read Bhagavad Gita? And then one of the boys put their hands up. So he said, no, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So in this way, he kind of encouraged the children like that to engage in Krishna consciousness. So from Sydney, Prabhupada went back to India. He went to Calcutta, and again Prabhupada organized. He sent Giriraj Maharaj and he sent Tamal Krishna Maharaj to organize as a Pandal program in Bombay. He told him to organize a Pandal program in Calcutta, and there the crowd was even bigger. 30,000 people would come every night. But also, I guess West Bengal was ruled by the communists, by the Naxalites. So they sent Prabhupada a message, fly or die. That we don't want you here. Either you fly or you die. So Prabhupada, he didn't bother. He didn't heed the note, and he went on with the program. And then the people, the Naxalites, they sat in the front, a whole lot of youth. Mrs. Sahama, the Naxalites. So they sat in the front, very, very rowdy and kind of disrupting the whole program. And Prabhupada, kind of unfazed, he continued to preach and have kirtan like that. And then again, so they threatened to burn the tent down, the marquee down. So the next night again they sent another note, fly or die. But Prabhupada continued. And then the second night they became even more rowdy. And then Prabhupada called all of them. He said, you come sit in the back and talk with me. But the devotees said, Prabhupada, no, don't do like that. They might harm you, they might attack you. But Prabhupada said, no, you bring them. And also, so then also to describe Prabhupada, he just chanted the Brahma Samhita. He sang the Brahma Samhita verses. And this pacified them and kind of made them a little bit. So when Prabhupada met with them in the back, he said, actually we're also presenting communism. But we're presenting spiritual communism. You're presenting the state in the center, but we're presenting Krishna in the center. And this is perfect. But you're putting the state in the center, that's imperfection. You're putting Lenin in the center, he's an imperfect personality. But if you put Krishna in the center, Krishna is perfect and complete. So therefore this is real communism. So they became a little bit more pacified, like that. So the Calcutta program was very, very, it was a very, very wonderful program. It was complete success like that. And Prabhupada was kind of being appreciated more and more by the Indian population like that. So whilst in Calcutta, Prabhupada had been corresponding. There was one devotee in America who had a professor friend in Russia. And then he was kind of corresponding with this friend, the devotee Krishnadas. He was corresponding with this professor in Russia. And then he asked that, no, my spiritual master, he's very learned in Vedic culture, and he can come and present some talks or make a presentation with the professors at the university who are teaching Indology like that. So the devotee, he showed Prabhupada the correspondence, and then Prabhupada began corresponding with the professor himself, Professor Kotovsky. And Prabhupada is saying that how we present and show how wonderful the Vedic culture is, etc. like that. So eventually a visa was granted, and Prabhupada was given like a guided tour of the city. That means you couldn't go wherever you wanted. Wherever they told you to go, you had to go. You couldn't like kind of wander in the streets and do this and do that. But wherever they kind of allowed you to go, that's where you could go. So Prabhupada went, and then they stayed in one hotel. And then, so they informed the hotel manager or the receptionist that they won't be eating the food from the hotel, that they want a facility to cook their own food. And the man, he refused. But after some time, he allowed them to use the maid's quarters. So they could cook in there. And then Prabhupada could get some vegetables. So they couldn't get vegetables, they couldn't get water, they couldn't get so many things. And even fruit, the only fruit they could get was a few cherries. The only vegetables they get was some cabbages. So like that, it was very, very austere. And then one day, when Shamsundar was standing in the line to get to buy some fruit, then one man approached him and said, "I want to meet you, I want to talk with you." So then he came back and he told Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, "Don't go, he's a policeman. He's simply trying to trick you." So the next day they were out, so then Shamsundar, he would like travel like for miles trying to get something to get some vegetables, get some fruit like that to eat. So when he was coming back to the hotel, and then he met two boys, and they were surprised to see Shamsundar with dhoti and kurta like that. And then one of the boys, he was the son, it was an Indian boy, he was the son of one of the ambassadors, Indian ambassadors to Russia. And then, so he said, "No, I can get you all the vegetables you want, I can get you all the things you wanted," like that. So then he had a European friend, or Russian friend, Ivan. So then they went to meet Prabhupada. And then, so Prabhupada spent 3 days with them. And he was preaching like that. So that same person, he became, what's his name? Yeah, he became the devotee, actually opened up the Russian preaching. So Prabhupada spent that 3 days with him, just like teaching them. Yeah, Nanda. Let me see something. And yeah, so then he actually, so Prabhupada spent time with him and like really invested a lot of time and patience teaching him how to chant, teaching him how to do so many things, to become vegetarian, etc. So Ivan, he accepted everything that Prabhupada told him. He said, "Okay, I'm not eating meat anymore," like that. He just surrendered to Prabhupada. So in this way we see how, so Prabhupada, he wrote back to the devotees. He's saying, for now it's not successful, but in future there is great hope. So like that we see that Prabhupada, from Moscow he went, also Prabhupada, he met with Professor Kotovsky. But Professor Kotovsky had his own idea of, just material, like Russian communism. And Prabhupada was trying to introduce spiritual communism, but it was like very, very hard for him to understand and to appreciate. And because he was saying that we're trying to create a classless society. And Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita that I've created the 4 different varanas, like that. So he couldn't understand, couldn't appreciate. So he's saying that we're trying to create a classless society. And then Prabhupada said, you already have a classless society because everyone is Sudra. So there's no need to create a classless society. We already have a classless society. And also Prabhupada, when he wrote back to the devotees in America like that, he said actually Russia is very well organized. But also he said actually it's like they also, Russia was always on a war footing. And he said therefore they're like asuras, they're like demons, they're always ready to fight. So he was like very, very mindful of that. So from there the Prabhupada, from Moscow he went to Paris. So from the airport he went to the Indian tourist office. So at the Indian tourist office Prabhupada took some rest, and then there was going to be an interview with the reporter, and then some Indian people came, and then the devotees were there. And then Prabhupada kind of he took rest, and then he met with the newspaper reporter, and he answered so many questions like that. And then the next day they were out on a morning walk, and then Prabhupada said, Paris means wine, women and money. And he asked, Hari Vilas was temple president, said, isn't that true? And Hari Vilas said, yes, it is true. It is wine, women and money. This is the whole French, I guess, philosophy, the whole French lifestyle, which is typical of life in the Western world. Everything is kind of centered around sense gratification. And then from there, so then Prabhupada, he returned to America after a year traveling in India, and then going to Malaysia, going to Australia, going to Moscow, then coming to Paris. Then Prabhupada went back to America after 1 year. So he arrived in Los Angeles. When Prabhupada left America, there was a lot of like infighting, there was a lot of turmoil in the society, because devotees began to minimize Prabhupada's position, minimize Prabhupada's authority, etc. So when Prabhupada came back, he found that the whole consciousness had changed, that devotees were much more appreciative, they were much more obedient, they were much more submissive, etc. And the Krishna consciousness was expanding. So Prabhupada, from Los Angeles, he went to San Francisco for the 5th annual Rath Yatra festival. So he spent time in San Francisco, and then he went back to New York City, and then from where he went to Detroit. So in Detroit, then Bhagavan, he was in charge of the Detroit center, and he opened centers in Chicago and other places like that. And in Rajuna Maharaj also, he joined was not joined, but he was there. And he was saying that actually that Prabhupada, he was because he was taking photographs. So he said Prabhupada was exactly as he was in his pictures, only this time Prabhupada was moving. He looked the same as in his pictures like that. So, by that time there was over 60 centers in America. When Prabhupada left, there were just like 5 centers. When he came back, there was like so many centers like that. So Prabhupada spent time, and then in Detroit. So devotees saying, Prabhupada, there's over 60 centers in America. Each center wants you to come. So Prabhupada said that I will go to that center that can organize a program, and there's lots of students that come, and they can give me $1,000. So Nanda Prabhu at that time, he said, okay, you please come to Gainesville in Florida. And then so Prabhupada, he went. And then along the way, but then the devotees would say, well, Prabhupada, it's like 2-hour flight from here to Atlanta. Then you have just a 2.5-hour drive to Gainesville. And by the time you come, it's like very, very tiring, you'll be exhausted. But Prabhupada said, no, I will go. So Prabhupada stopped in Atlanta, and he did some programs there with the devotees. And then he went to Florida, he went to Gainesville. And then he preached to the students and he did TV interviews. So one of the reporters asked him that, he said that it seems that there's only young people in your movement. So Prabhupada said, why are there only young people in the university? So the lady said, no, it's time for education. So Prabhupada said, yes, it's also time for Krishna conscious education. So that's why there's only young people in the movement. Then Prabhupada said also, you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. So, yeah, so the movement was just full of young devotees. So there was, after the university program, there was a TV interview. And also the reporter, like the reporter in London, he was very, very cutting and sarcastic in his interviews. And he tried to corner Prabhupada, to make Prabhupada present Krishna consciousness as a sectarian religion, as something, but Prabhupada kind of kept on presenting Krishna consciousness as a non-sectarian movement that is actually meant to kind of bring peace and prosperity for the whole world, not just for Indian people, or not just for Hindus, but for the entire world. So in this way he was saying, and then the man so then Prabhupada he started talking about Christianity. And then Prabhupada challenged him that, why are you eating meat? And the man quickly he dropped the subject and went on to something else. And Prabhupada was saying that in the Bible it's not said that one can eat animals and not kill human beings. So the man quickly changed the subject. And in the end, off air, the Prabhupada said, if you're sick, who would you go to? Would you go to your friend or would you go to a doctor? So the man was saying, no, I'll go to my friend. So Prabhupada said, no, if you're sick, who would you go to? So the man, even in off air, he was very, very stubborn. He didn't want to surrender and appreciate what Prabhupada is saying. So in the end, Prabhupada said, no, if you're sick, you have to go to the doctor. And the spiritual doctor is the spiritual master, so you have to surrender to the spiritual master. So like that, so Prabhupada was either on air or off air. Prabhupada was always presenting Krishna consciousness in a very, very wonderful way, but also people could understand that actually Prabhupada's presentation, Prabhupada's preaching wasn't done in the mood to actually kind of belittle them or to kind of crush them, but it was done in the mood of compassion. Even though sometimes he spoke very, very heavily, but still they could appreciate that what he's saying is actually in a mood of compassion. It's actually to help us. So therefore, just like one has a boil, you don't blow hot air on the boil, but you use the lancet or the lance and cut it out. So sometimes Prabhupada was very, very cutting in this way. And he would kind of chastise people, he would call them rascal, he would say so many things. But people could take it because that was Prabhupada's position. He was in the position of authority. Then from there Prabhupada went to London, and then he was very, very sick in London because it was raining for 4 days consecutively, and then there was no sunshine like that, so Prabhupada was getting sick. And then Prabhupada, so he wrote to Krishna Maharaj, I'm sick here in London. And then and also then Prabhupada began to chastise the devotees, that where is the book publication? He said, I'm writing, I can write 2 books a month. I can dictate 2 books a month. But if you don't publish them, what is the point? And you are a big man, you're promising, I'll do it, but nothing's happening. So Prabhupada is very, very upset with the devotees, especially with the GBC men, that you're promising that you're going to print books, but nothing is being done. And so Prabhupada, so then they took it very, very, they kind of got like a wake-up call. And then they told Prabhupada that, in a week's time we're printing 5 books. So Prabhupada became very, very happy. So in London, and Prabhupada met one Indian gentleman, Mr. Pandya, who said he had a very, very nice house in Mombasa. And the weather was perfect, nice sunny weather, it's right on the beach, nice house, nice accommodation, like that. So Prabhupada, and also Prabhupada at that time he had sent Brahmananda. So prior to Brahmananda going to Kenya or going to Africa, Prabhupada had sent him to Pakistan. And so when they were traveling from Europe through Turkey, they had like Harinam on the streets in Turkey, and then they were arrested. And then were accused of being Christian missionaries like that. And when they went to Pakistan, then the people spat at them, the people threw tomatoes on them, people threw, and then people kind of would come up to them and rub off the tilak from their foreheads and attack them like that. So, and then there was and also India and Pakistan were like almost like on a war footing. And then the news reached, or there was an article in the Bombay newspaper that 4 Hare Krishna devotees were attacked and killed. So Prabhupada was in great anxiety that like the devotees were actually kind of victimized, or they were like attacked in this way, they might have even been dead. So eventually Brahmananda, he arrived in Bombay. And when he arrived, then Prabhupada was very, very happy. And then he said, oh, you risked your life just to preach Krishna consciousness, just to please me. So Prabhupada was like very, very pleased and to see the surrender of the devotees like that. Like they risked their lives to preaching Krishna consciousness. So we can see how the devotees, they took so many risks. Prabhupada himself took so many risks to preach Krishna consciousness. And in the same way, the devotees also, they took many risks to present Krishna consciousness in so many countries of the world. And then from there, so Brahmananda was sent to Africa, and then he arrived in Nairobi, and then he was preaching in Mombasa. And then so Prabhupada arrived in Mombasa, and then his health, he recovered, his health really improved. The warm sun and on the beach like that, and nice fruit and vegetables and everything like that. So Prabhupada's health improved tremendously. And then Prabhupada said, no, we should preach in Nairobi, which is the biggest city, or the main city. So they went, and then, but Brahmananda at that time was only preaching to the Indians. And he felt that, like how to preach to the local population was hard. So they heard that there was a Radha Krishna temple in downtown Nairobi. So Prabhupada said, you open the doors and have kirtan in the temple. So the devotees went and they had kirtan in the temple, and people just kind of filled the temple. People just came in, like thousands of people came in. And then they had kirtan like that. And then so Prabhupada was very, very encouraged by that. He said, we have to take the Indian money and print and distribute books and donate the books to the African people. You have to distribute prasadam and give them the holy name. For Africa, he said, this is the 3 things that we have to do. Distribute the holy name, distribute prasadam, and get money from the Indian community and distribute books. Get them to donate the books and distribute it to them. And in this way, Krishna consciousness will actually flourish like that. And when Prabhupada came to South Africa, the same thing, he said the same thing. That we have to distribute prasadam, distribute the holy name, and get the Indian population, Indian community to support the preaching. Because he said Africa belongs to the Africans. We don't preach to the Africans, what's the point? Because Indians you can preach is very easy. But to preach to the local population, it is difficult. So Prabhupada wanted us to preach to the African community. Because if they can see how wonderful Krishna consciousness is, then they won't kick us out. They won't attack us. Just like I was in Durban on Friday, and then I met only one devotee was there. And he was saying how he was actually, when they were kind of following him, or kind of, what do you say, checking him out like for weeks on end, like his whole schedule, his pattern, like that. So then they knew that on Monday he went to the Radharatna temple, on Tuesday he went to the Phoenix temple, on this day he went there. So they were checking out his movements like that. So they ambushed him on the highway. And then they made him, and they began to beat him up on the highway like that. They kind of bashed him up. And then they took him to his house. So he was saying that his sister had just given birth. The baby was like 2 weeks old. His mother was inside. And then they kind of ransacked the house. He said whatever they wanted. They said just take whatever you want. And then he gave them the money, he gave them jewelry. They said, no, every Indian house has a safe, so where's the safe? He said, no, whatever money I've got, I've given you. He said about 70,000 rands.
Oh.
He said, I gave them all the money, cell phones, jewelry, whatever. Then they went into the temple room. Then they started pulling up the pictures. They started pulling up the pictures and doing so many things like that. And then he started to laugh. Then he said, why are you laughing? He said, what you're doing now, for so many lifetimes you're going to suffer. And then they saw a picture of him distributing prasadam. And then one of the guys said, okay, no, these people, they feed us all the time. Don't kill them. They do good work. So you can see how the prasadam, like this was the point I was making, that if the local population, the government like that, they appreciate what ISKCON is doing, then they won't kick us out. Just like in Zimbabwe, we don't have a center in Zimbabwe, because in one sense we're banned in Zimbabwe. In a few other African countries also, because of that disconnect between the devotees and the government and the local people. So we have to be like we have to preach to the local people, because that way they kind of see that we are good, we're doing good for the people, we're doing good for the community, we're trying to help them grow in so many ways. And they can appreciate, and then they'll kind of respect and help the devotees, as opposed to attacking and trying to cause harm to the devotees. Like in West Africa also, one story is there, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's disciples, that the rebel group, they kind of overthrew the government, and then devotees, they were like distributing prasadam, and like the rebel leaders, they were really appreciative of the devotees, or just see how much good work we're doing. But then the devotees, one devotee wrote a letter to two of the leaders saying that you're a rascal, and you're like this, and you're like that, and you should give up eating meat, and like that. And this really upset him. And then he lined up, they came to the temple, attacked all the devotees, lined them up and executed them. So we have to be like, so preaching is an art. Like we might want to tell people, don't eat meat, and don't do this, and don't do that. But we have to be like very, very careful, which is the truth. We have to say these things, but we have to be like very, very diplomatic in the way that we preach. Not that we compromise, but there's a time, place, and circumstance for everything. So we have to really like preaching is an art. And as Prabhupada said, you must know how to push. Like when you're massaging, it doesn't cause pain, but it causes relief. So in the same way, we have to preach in that way that we can actually benefit people. Because you might tell them, you're a meat-eater, you're this, you're that. And if he shoots you, what's the point? You can't preach anymore. So we have to be like very, very careful like that. So, so from Nairobi, then Prabhupada went back to India. So that's where my part concludes. So is there any questions? So we can see how Prabhupada actually, he had not only his own vision, but the vision of the predecessor acharyas, the vision of Lord Chaitanya, the mood of Lord Chaitanya, the goal of the Krishna consciousness movement, to actually give people Krishna. And by reading Prabhupada's life and seeing how Prabhupada preached, we have to become inspired to preach also. Otherwise, it might be, it's a nice story. Like we read about Prabhupada, and we might read about some great personality like that. But actually, this reading or this rendering of these books are actually meant to inspire us to kind of imbibe the spirit of Prabhupada, imbibe that mood, and also to present Krishna consciousness to as many people as possible. Because that is the only, I would say, the only panacea for humanity. We might think that the DA is now in charge and they will bring peace and prosperity, or the EFF might be in charge next year and they will bring peace. But actually, whoever's in charge, it's a demoniac mentality. So, Prabhupada, in one sense, Prabhupada said that we have to, like one devotee Prabhupada initiated was Aramendra, and Prabhupada requested that, because he was a lawyer, and Prabhupada said, you form a Krishna conscious party. And he vied for mayor of New York City. So, even with the previous GBC was here, Bhagavan Prabhu, at that time the tripartite government was, like this thing. So, Rajbansi was kind of canvassing in Chatsworth. And he said we should form a political party and challenge them. If we did that time, we could have won like many of the Indian areas. Because Krishna consciousness was like very, very strong. And like Prabhupada often say, we have to strike while the iron is hot. It was just like when we first had the first program in Lenasia, in Padilla Hall. I mean, that hall was like packed. People were sitting on the aisles, people were sitting, wherever there was some space, people were sitting. And, I mean, there must have been like 20, 30, maybe even up to 50 devotees on stage. And mainly European devotees. Bhagavan was there, Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj was there, Partha Maharaj, Indra Swami, so many devotees were there. Adhikata and like that, Pranabhalava. So many Prabhupada disciples were there. And the program was like, people like really like kind of bought into the program. They really loved Hare Krishna. But somehow or other we didn't capitalize on that. And we kind of fizzled out. So Jayapataka Maharaj makes the point that ISKCON is very, very good at cultivating people. We plant the seeds, the crops grow, but we cannot harvest. All these other groups come and they harvest. So we have to actually kind of, we're doing the groundwork, we're preaching, we're doing so many things, but we have to be able to complete it. And that requires the help of so many people. So, on the auspicious occasion of ISKCON 50, we appeal to all of you all that you please take this Krishna consciousness process very, very seriously. Many of you are sincere and dedicated devotees like that, but also to take up the preaching spirit on behalf of Prabhupada. If Prabhupada just sat in Vrindavan, chanting Hare Krishna, we wouldn't be here. There'd be no ISKCON like that. But Prabhupada, on behalf of Lord Chaitanya, he traversed the world giving Krishna consciousness. Yes.
Nanda Kumar Prabhu, thank you for taking us into Prabhupada's past acts. In ISKCON we notice there's so much of devotion to Guru. Like even Srila Prabhupada's disciples had so much of devotion for Srila Prabhupada, and even the grand disciples have so much of devotion for Srila Prabhupada's disciples who became Guru. And you know, you was talking about Giriraj Maharaj and Tamal Krishna Maharaj going out and doing life membership and stuff. You know, like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he had so much devotion for Srila Prabhupada that one time he and Giriraj Maharaj met one prospective donor, and the donor told him, I'll only give you a donation if you allow me to pour this bottle of limca over your head. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj told him, okay, as long as I get the donation, you can do that. So after the man poured a bottle of limca on Tamal Krishna Maharaj's head, he gave the donation. So much of surrender there was there, you know, so it's a nice culture. So I just wanted to share.
You also, Ambarish Prabhu, who's coming end of the month, he was saying that, because he was preaching with Giriraj Maharaj. And for him, like Bombay was like, because Giriraj Maharaj spent a lot of time in Bombay, but this was like his first visit. It was like boiling hot. And they were like trying to solicit donations from life members and from the shopkeepers and things like that. And he said, Giriraj Maharaj wouldn't even buy me one cruise. He said he wouldn't even buy water, because every cent that they collected, he wanted to give it to Prabhupada. So you know, he was recounting how, like his early, in Bombay with Giriraj Maharaj. He said he wouldn't even buy one kuri.